In order to fully understand conspiracy theories, it must be realized that conspiracy culture, in the controlled opposition form that it takes via what's promoted by the media, is the new counterculture. It's an almost identical cultural movement that was scripted into existence like the 60s counterculture that came before it. That's the main reason that I did that video on the Beatles and Rosemary's Baby and the tie-in to the New Age movement. Yes, it was indirectly related to the subconscious programming surrounding Donald Trump, so that aspect of it was important. But the primary reason that I did that video is to show the pattern that exists here. If you can understand what was going on in the 60s and how that movement was artificially crafted, you can understand how today's conspiracy theory culture was artificially crafted in the same way. There are thousands of Tim Learys with a microphone and a YouTube channel or a Twitter account. And they are allegedly giving you the truth in the same way that characters like Leary were giving it to people back then, freeing their minds, showing people the way to find the real truth that society was hiding from you in that way. And that reminds me, before going on, I did want to talk about psychedelics. Conspiracy theories are a form of psychedelics. They should come with a warning label, right? You're going on a trip when you go down these rabbit holes. That's why we call them rabbit holes. Alice in Wonderland. There is some seriously perception-altering material on the internet that involves conspiracy theories, and it will change your entire life. It'll change everything that you ever thought you wanted in the same way that the psychedelics do it. Part of the reason I'm doing this video right now is to show you an example of how this works so you can have your guard up when you let this information in, because people don't even have a choice now. It's like an intentional psychedelic dose that everyone is being given through the artificial mainstreaming of the controlled opposition version of conspiracy theories. They are forcing people to be exposed to these ideas. They're almost taunting people to go down these rabbit holes on the internet. The ones that they have, tunneled themselves and built for you to go down, that give you little pieces of the truth, but then mislead you at the same time and just create a situation like the chaos magicians refer to, where nobody knows what to think about anything. You can see this in every subject matter now. Just try to research diet and try to figure out the optimal human diet. Nobody has any idea what we should be eating now because there's so much conflicting information. And that ties into what I'm going to go into here about the Blue Origin spaceflight, in the sense that there is intentionally wrong information put out there that achieves a number of different results. Number one, anybody who's looking into this stuff for the first time and doesn't have the context for what it is will immediately look at it and say, oh wow, this stuff is just all wrong. These people on the internet have no idea what they're talking about. These conspiracy theorists are crazy. I guess everything they've been saying about MAGA and Q and misinformation is right. These people are intentionally misleading everyone. And it's one thing when they're talking about a space flight that has no bearing on your actual life, like, say, diet does. That can actually kill you if you follow similar information given out by people in the same way designed to mislead you, and you follow this advice thinking it's real, and it destroys your body, right? I mean, it's a very real consequence that can happen to you going down these rabbit holes. Not only are conspiracy theories a psychedelic trip that is altering your mind in a way that can forever change the way you approach life in a way that might be detrimental to your survival. Just the mundane information about the world and what's really going on can do the exact same thing. And depending on the subject matter, it can lead to your death. And I'm not talking about the powers that be and what they can potentially do to people. I'm just talking about what you do to yourself. That's what I'm addressing here, the self-inflicted nature of this thing, where you arrogantly trade the mainstream information for this alternative conspiracy theory information and don't change anything else. You just change the stream of information. You go from the mainstream to the conspiracy stream. And you're still just as stupid as you were before you had the new information stream. And that's when it gets really dangerous, because you're an idiot and then you're given this information that you are not equipped to handle in that way. And if you're lucky, you blow through the disinformation pretty quickly and you reach the stage where you start to become wise. And when you become wise, then the information has less of an effect on you. It's almost like you're immune to the psychedelics. You take a dose and it does a little bit to you, but you don't trip like a lot of other people do. You have this natural spiritual immunity to what's being put into your awareness. And in this way, you kind of move past it eventually and you can see the trap. And once you can see the trap, okay, now maybe you can survive this thing and find that middle path, that middle ground where you assimilate the truth that is really there to find, but you're not assimilating the disinformation at the same time and promoting that to other people and damaging all of your relationships in your life because those people are NPCs and they don't have the truth like you do, right? You're not damaging every connection that you ever had, which are connections that help you survive in this world. And I'm not talking monetarily there. I'm talking about the necessary social component of being alive. We need that human contact to survive. And part of this psychedelic trip that these disinformation artists are tasked with promoting is this idea of isolation. And there's nuance to everything, right? Yes, you do need periods of hermit-like behavior where you're free to think on your own without any interference, but you always want to be mindful of not getting stuck there. You want to come out of those phases and re-interact with everyone in a way where you have social contact again. And you're not forever burning bridges that can help you at various points in your life. Speaking of the psychedelic trip, there's the idea that space is fake. This is one of the most popular catchphrases in conspiracy theory land. Oh, don't you know space is fake? And there is a whole contingent of controlled opposition disinformation artists that put out intentionally false information to allegedly prove that space is fake or whatever the case is, right? This is in every genre you can imagine, but in particular, space is fake. They have all of this bad information that they put out there so that no one actually is capable of truly understanding any kind of alternative interpretation of what might be above us. I can go outside and see the moon, which scientists have stated is a cosmic impossibility. I mean, even the scientists who study the moon closely and look into it are saying, you know, this thing really shouldn't exist. It doesn't make any sense. But you can't get into any kind of measured inquiry along those lines now without running into this intentional disinformation on the internet. And that's by design. It's discrediting any kind of true inquiries into things that the mainstream tells us is one way, but might be another way. Maybe they're not giving us the full truth about this thing, and through this disinformation, they can obfuscate anybody who does a legitimate type of research into this sort of thing. And more broadly, then, it's all tying back into the umbrella that is disinformation and misinformation on the internet, the big problem that represents, which will serve the purpose of future censorship. As the representative of conspiracy theories, the current president of the United States, reaches the crescendo of the second plane striking the second tower in his second term, eventually there will be this inauthentic groundswell to censor the internet. We have to get a hold of this thing. And it's all playing into that. It's a long game along those lines that even started back in the 60s counterculture, and how that started shifting the perception of the mind and what it wanted, what it thought was the right way to do things. Because even the main characters in the fake disinformation realm are carrying on the legacy of people like Tim Leary, right? Joe Rogan is a clone of that movement. He promotes psychedelics. He narrated Strassman's DMT, the Spirit Molecule documentary. He has characters like Leary on his podcast all of the time. They promote psychedelics similarly. And so they're merging this far-right world with that psychedelic world and the conspiracy theory world. It's all one thing, right? It's all one big contrived counterculture. It's the new version of the 60s counterculture. It was artificially and intentionally mainstreamed so that it would help send our mind, metaphorically, to the land of Oz, send our minds through the Stargate, and then once that process reaches the critical mass where it's an escape velocity through the black hole, as it were, the black screen, and the minds are on that path that they cannot return from any longer, then you shift and pivot to the idea of misinformation and disinformation, and then you censor the thing that the mind has merged with. And in this way, you control it in perpetuity into the future. As the mind is merging into the screen, you are then in full control of what can be said by the mind in the screen, and physically the body is then merging with the grid that you have set up around to be fused with the internet as well, and it's full spectrum dominance at that point. This is why the New Age is so closely tied into conspiracy theories as well, because they are selling this idea to you as you accept this propaganda that you are achieving enlightenment. You are defeating the evil deep state. You're defeating the evil in control of this world. We're winning. This is what they always tell you, right? That was Donald Trump's main talking point. He's always winning. That's probably, back in the day, why they had Charlie Sheen do the winning meme, because he has 9/11 quote-unquote truth roots, associating the idea of that fake truth movement with winning. So you associate the idea of these fake conspiracy theories with winning. So you stay plugged in. You follow the white rabbits. You engage in the psychedelic experience. You alter your perception, and you become isolated. You detach from society. You give up in that way. Again, I'm not saying that you should lust after changing some part of this world. Ultimately, that's sort of a fruitless endeavor, but I'm talking more in terms of detaching from everything you've known up until that point, detaching from the people you know and the institutions you were involved with, your employment, just everything along those lines. This is why the man they call Jesus said, "Be in the world, but not of the world." You will have entanglements in the world existing here, You just must cultivate the ability to detach and not be of your experience in that way. But this particular rabbit hole of conspiracy theories is shifting your perception in a way where eventually you are not in the world at all. You completely detach to this fake online community where everyone has supposedly found the truth, and that's all you need. Yes, the media is a pathological lying entity, okay? Yes, it doesn't tell the truth fully about a lot of things, but that doesn't mean that every single thing that's been in a mainstream sourced article is false, right? There's nuance there that you have to learn to cultivate, the ability to discern. Anyways, let's finally get to this Blue Origin thing. Now, conspiracy theorists claim to spot a fake hand on the Blue Origin ship as they continue to insist something was definitely wrong with Katy Perry's flight. And this is referring to this meme that was started on Twitter and the internet in general, where, oh, look, this is another fake space flight. It's a mannequin that they actually sent up there. And everything else we saw was on a Hollywood film set, just like the original fake moon landing. I mean, that's how they tell the story, right? Now, hear me on this. I am not defending what NASA or organizations like Blue Origin and SpaceX present to us. I'm not defending that. I'm not saying it's exactly as they portray it to us. Indeed, every single NASA flight is an occult ritual. It is laced with subconscious programming every single time. But understanding the reality of what's actually transpiring in the real world is different than understanding that fact. You can go to Cape Canaveral and watch a rocket take off and fly into the sky. There is some level of truth going on with what we are shown, is all I'm trying to say. And stuff like this is designed to discredit any kind of neutral inquiry into what is really going on, and discredit just the whole concept of quote-unquote truth-seeking in general. Because it takes 5 seconds to look into this. You see this picture, it's clearly a mannequin hand, and then you look into it a little bit more, and it becomes obvious, as many commenters pointed out, this photo is clearly not of the Blue Origin launch, which took place this Monday. Instead, this is from the test flight of New Shepard Crew Capsule 2.0, which took place on December 12, 2017. Yes, there was a mannequin in this space capsule. Yes, it was in a test flight, but it was from 2017. And it was even a completely different capsule that had Blue Origin written in blue, as opposed to the black that was in the capsule that these women allegedly went to space in. So understand what transpired here. Someone knew about this test flight, and they intentionally created disinformation by posting it and pretending like it was a photo from the most recent Blue Origin flight. It's intentional disinformation. This is transpiring all over the internet. There are so many entities that are doing this, and now you don't even need a real human being. You can just have your bot army on Twitter and all the other sites upload these memes, and then your strategically placed assets pick up the story and repost it or whatever. That's how you create a viral story. And they did the same thing here with the door that opened from the inside. And they said, oh, well, this is fake then. And it's like, well, you do 5 seconds of research into this capsule and you can see that, well, they're designed now to be able to be open from the inside as well as the outside. Now, sure, was there some kind of photo op plan for Jeff Bezos to open it with the crowbar and make it look dramatic? Yeah, I'm sure they had something like that planned, and one of the not so intelligent women on the flight opened the door when they weren't supposed to, and they say, no, close it. We got this all planned to be, on all the news channels later tonight where Bezos opens the door. But they further use something like this to claim, oh, look, it opens from the inside. Look how flimsy the door looks. That couldn't have gone up in the air and into space. And it's like, well, you have to go look at what the flight actually did. It went barely to the line that demarks the entrance into quote-unquote space, and it was there for 11 minutes. And then it came back down. So did it really need to be designed like an actual thing that allegedly goes into space? Probably not. Does that explain why they didn't look like they had actually been in space? Because they were barely exposed to changes in gravity? Maybe. Again, I'm not trying to defend what is portrayed to us. I'm trying to get you to think about what is presented to you by quote-unquote conspiracy theorists. Because you need to understand the nature of control and opposition. They are malicious. They are intentionally putting false information into your mind. And principally, they do it through stuff like this. They are intentionally using false evidence of something else so that you repeat it and you can be debunked. And that discredits you to everybody that you might be talking to about this stuff. And then the media can do the same thing, like this Daily Mail article is doing. Hey, look at all these conspiracy theories, quote unquote, that are on the internet about Blue Origin. We have debunked all of them. Clearly, this is just another example of the misinformation on the internet. And as those examples stack up and make this big giant pile, then the media can come in eventually and say, look, this is just too much of a problem. We have to do something about this. People need to be attached to their real identity on the internet so that we can get a handle on who is posting what, so that we can stop misinformation and disinformation. Stuff like this was going on from the beginning with the 9/11 quote-unquote truth movement. All these fake characters pretending to be giving you the truth, giving you bad information to prove a bad conclusion. People were using examples like this to say, oh, well, there were no planes on 9/11 and there were no people there either. The whole thing was just completely fake. And then they use an evidence like this image to prove that. It's like, you didn't prove anything, and your conclusion is not supported in any way as a result. What are you doing? And then, from there, you can see the more subtle ways that they do this. Because remember, this is happening spiritually just as much as it's happening with something overt like a space flight. Think about all that information that's getting put into your mind like a psychedelic substance that's altering your view. The neuroplastic brain is rearranging, and the spiritual information doesn't have the evidence that something like this has that you can actually look at. That's just something you have to feel. Your intuition has to be functioning in order to realize you're being lied to. But obviously, you need to be especially wary of anybody who's coming to you as a guru of any sort. Anybody who's claiming to have the ultimate spiritual truth. You got to be really careful with that, because it could easily be somebody giving you this mannequin hand saying, hey, look, this thing over here is fake because of this. All of space is fake because of this mannequin hand. And when you actually break it down, it's like, well, no, that's from a different flight where they actually sent the mannequin into space, and it doesn't have anything to do with this most recent flight, and that doesn't prove anything, right? So that's what's going on in every way you can imagine it. It's very important to recognize this pattern and then apply it to the larger structure where, in terms of society, conspiracy theories are the new counterculture. It's the new 60s counterculture that is designed to steer and craft public perception in a certain way, in a 100th monkey way, right? Not everybody got involved in the hippie 60s counterculture. Not everybody was involved in that anti-Vietnam War movement that kind of artificially fused with the 60s counterculture, perhaps by design to diffuse a little bit of that anti-war sentiment. But conspiracy theories are doing the same thing, right? It's fusing with any kind of legitimate truth that's coming out through the internet about how politics really works, how these wars really come into being, how the false flag formula is working, how it's never really what they tell us. Well, these versions of conspiracy theories are merging with that truth, and it's diffusing it in a similar way because it's so easily lumped into the red hat, orange man bad, orange man fascist. That's all by design, of course, because he is the terrorist attack taking place. He's the personification of 9/11. So as the conspiracy theorist president, he is embodying all of this bad information. And ultimately, he will destroy America with it. And that's what's coming out in the news every day, more and more. More and more pressure building against Donald Trump. Speaking of which, this came out after I made the last video on Pope Francis's death and J.D. Vance's visit, where somebody went to the lengths of producing a Donald Trump post that could have the JD kill Pope subliminal message put into it. And when I saw this, I said, okay, now I'm certain that this was an intentional narrative that was scripted into this JD Vance visiting the Pope right before he died narrative. They were intentionally putting this idea about JD Vance assassination in '88 in the context of Donald Trump into it. And stuff like this was very intentionally put out. Similarly, Marjorie Taylor Greene seemingly celebrating the death of the Pope, playing her character. She has a Pelosi-like ability as a traitor and exactly timed the bottom of the flash crash that transpired. She made all kinds of money when the tariff temporary reversal was announced. And you can see why she made all of that money, because she's playing her character as designed to perfection. She's this lightning rod for anger and resentment, and everybody can point to her and say, see, this is MAGA. This is who MAGA really is. This is what we need to get control of. These are the people that are running the government right now. Kash Patel is a QAnon supporter. He's running the FBI. RFK Jr. is a fierce anti-vaxxer. He's trying to kill all the people with measles, and he's running our health system now. On and on it goes. They're strategically putting all these MAGA pieces into the government and having them do these things so that it adds to this idea of the problem of conspiracy theories, this fake controlled opposition conspiracy theory culture that is the 60s counterculture reborn for a different time, that is changing society so that the new age can come out of it. Or the quote-unquote new world order, however you want to refer to it. Also, on Sunday, Easter Sunday, the day before the Pope's death, Klaus Schwab stepped down as World Economic Forum chair, and he recently turned 87, but they made a very specific mention in his quotes in all the news articles to 88. Following my recent announcement, and as I enter my 88th year, I have decided to step down from the position of chair and as a member of the board of trustees with immediate effect. Oh, and that reminds me, when I was talking about Joi Ito, I forgot to point out that he was a World Economic Forum young global leader, and he is heavily involved in that scene, which just is bringing the whole thing full circle. Joi Ito, head of the Digital Currency Initiative at MIT, big promoter of Bitcoin. He's best friends with Tim Leary, and he is plugged into Epstein's network, most likely by Tim Leary, way back when he first came to America. And then Donald Trump is a huge Bitcoin supporter. He's big into crypto. And the whole far right is big into cryptocurrency as well, because they sell you this idea that it's going to defeat the banksters, right? It's the solution to financial tyranny. It's our way out. It's this promise of a new age, right? It's very similar to the New Age propaganda, spiritually speaking. It's selling you the same themes. But it's all one thing that's slowly merging together into this contrived conspiracy culture that will eventually be censored. Al Gore just recently compared Trump to Nazi Germany, and this is all by design. They've been comparing Trump to Hitler and the Nazis from the beginning, which ties directly into that censorship agenda, right? This idea that Donald Trump is the next Hitler, and the red hat will be the swastika when it's all said and done in the history books. And they will point back to all the things that are going on artificially through his administration and say, look, it happened again. And we all sat by and just watched it happen. And eventually it led to this thing that really got us to take action. And then it was kind of banned from society. We learned our lesson. But he repeated a very familiar phrase. Gore concluded his speech by calling on attendees to take action as the U.S. was, quote unquote, under attack. Oh, well, indeed. If you understand the subconscious programming, you understand that Donald Trump is indeed attacking America. He is that second plane flying into the second tower in his second term after the first plane and the first term and the first tower, right? It's a controlled demolition of America. It's the personification of 9/11 or a terrorist attack on America itself. So indeed, everything that they are doing is mirroring that as it is being reported by the news and all these characters that are supposedly against it. They're saying, oh my gosh, Donald Trump is attacking America. Well, yeah, it was by design. It's obvious. That's what he's doing. Wharton's Jeremy Siegel has called Trump's tariffs the biggest policy mistake in 95 years. Well, no, it's not a policy mistake. It was all by design. He's intentionally doing this, or his handlers are doing this through his character. He's not really doing any of this. It's just a convention of language that you say that. Yeah, of course, it's the biggest policy mistake in 95 years because it's designed as an attack on America in the same way that COVID-19 was an attack on the world in general as it relates to reorganizing supply chains and reorganizing world trade. Personification of 9/11, the World Trade Centers are collapsed. So Donald Trump is collapsing world trade through this process and reorganizing it into the multipolar world order. They've been very open about this in all of their writings. It's not a policy mistake, it's by design. America needs to be brought down and change needs to happen in the trade markets, globally speaking, so that the multipolar world can come into existence and it can be governed globally with one set of guidelines. That's what it is. These aren't mistakes, quote unquote. It's all designed. And going back to the J.D. Vance intentional association to the Pope's death at 88 and assassination in the context of Donald Trump's potential assassination, or what I was just referring to, the symbolic assassination of the United States of America via the assassination of his character in this way. It just so happens that J.D. Vance goes from Rome to India, and there's a terrorist attack today in Indian-controlled Kashmir. J.D. Vance meets with the Pope hours before his death, And then the artificially scripted memes are ready to be flooded on the internet in the aftermath of the reporting of his death. A couple days later, he's in India and there's a terrorist attack. Do you see how that's combining all of this together? Donald Trump and Vance are the metaphorical terrorist attack on the United States of America itself, and it involves the assassination of the character Donald Trump, which is either metaphorical or literal, I don't know, but the whole thing is working together subconsciously to reinforce those themes. J.D. Vance, terrorist attack. 88, Donald Trump, assassination, death, ritual sacrifice. Finally, this is from Captain America, Brave New World. There's this very intentional scene here where they use the lens and the way it's set up to create this illusion where Harrison Ford's character, who is the President of the United States, is mirrored or twinned. In this case, there's kind of three versions of him, but it's this twin that's giving you the Janus imagery, the twinning of the hand. So it's this idea of the twin of 9/11, who is the President of the United States, with the 39 or 93 likewise being subconsciously implanted. 1939, The Wizard of Oz, 1 hour and 42-minute runtime, the same runtime as 9/11. Assassination, Liber Oz, the whole thing, right? The portal, the twin, it's all here in this image. And then later they show the White House with the moon fully shining brightly, again giving you the idea of the moon child in the White House, right? He's eclipsing the presidency. He's assassinating the presidency, in other words, or it's being assassinated through him and the country itself. The moon child is pulling on the water of America and the minds of everyone in the world in general, right? Creating this new reality, sending us through the Stargate. And then at the end of the film, they show the President of the United States, who was twinned in that scene, who was in the White House under the full moon, standing on top of a destroyed White House after he transformed into this giant red beast, right? A giant red Hulk. The red MAGA hat is standing on top of the White House in flames. There you go. That's the whole thing. And on that note, I'll end the video.